Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here again. Apologies for actually doing this virtually. I've just injured myself this week, so I've not been able to physically come and do the presentation. As what was said, my name is Dr. Gurpreet Singh, and I am the Director for South Asia for the University of Newcastle in Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurpreet. So moving on to the start of the session. With that, just give you a bit more perspective about the Study Australia market landscape. You may be aware that Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement was put in place about a year and a half ago. And in terms of the market dynamics for India, there are more than 50% of India's population is under the age of 25. It is the second largest source market for Australia for international students, and 54% growth in higher education enrollments in 2023. So under this Ekta agreement, as we term it, Australia has, for the first time, confirmed post-study work visa rights as a side to this trade agreement and will extend access for highly sought after STEM and ICT graduates. They've also recently announced a MATES pilot program under which the Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement will offer 3,000 recent Indian graduates and young professionals in targeted fields of renewable energy, engineering, mining, and ICT with 2-year work visas. On top of that, the post-study work visa rights have been really attractive proposals for Indian students to consider Australia as a study destination. During the COVID period, Australia had very stringent border policy and they were locked down for a good 2.5 years. And only in early last year, Australia opened up borders for international students to start coming into the country and attend classes in person. Now, we also are offering benefits of regional cities. So both University of Newcastle and University of Western Australia are located in one of the regional cities of Australia, which is, I'm coming from Perth. And on top of the post-study work visa rights that are offered to students, the regional city campuses are offering an extra year or 2 years of post-study work visa, depending upon the course you are enrolled in and also the level of education, whether it's undergraduation or post-graduation. The last point we have is the growing middle class and tightening capacity constraints. So Indian students are now increasingly interested in niche courses beyond business, IT, and engineering to ensure they widen their career outcomes. So Australia's broad course offerings include areas such as allied health, education, retail, travel, and tourism, which is where we are seeing an astronomical growth in our student queries in the recent year and a half. In addition to the strong interest in traditional STEM programs, they are looking for these expanding career options in the services sector. In terms of the growing middle class, specific to undergraduate recruitment, as we call it, after year 12 students who want to go overseas for studies, we are looking at tightening capacity constraints in India, and that's driving students to consider studying abroad. The major draw cards for Australia have been the strong global rankings of our institutions, industry interface, vibrant, safe, and wholesome campus life, cultural experience, and the relatively easy access to part-time and full-time work opportunities. At the moment, Indian diaspora in Australia is growing one of the fastest, with close to 1 million people who have Indian ancestry and close to 650,000 people in Australia who are born in India. So that's the market landscape. Moving on to the next one, which is how we have approached the recruitment for undergraduate courses from India. Now, as you can see here, University of Western Australia introduced close to about 35 new undergraduate courses at the beginning of last year. And these courses were derived in consultation with the industry, but predominantly targeting the international markets. So at the top here, we have comprehensive versus specialized bachelor's degrees. I'll give you a quick example. We earlier used to have a Bachelor of Commerce with specializations such as accounting, finance, marketing, HR. But what we realized is commerce is not really a good name that Indian students like to take on when wants to go for undergraduate degree. So then we looked into alternative options such as Bachelor of Business. And the difference between Bachelor of Business, which is a comprehensive degree, versus Bachelor of Commerce, which is a very specialized program, we started offering majors such as Enterprise and Innovation, as well as we offer General Management. And that gave option to students to do a combination of two majors. So they can go for a specialized major such as finance and combine it with general management, or they can go for enterprise and innovation and couple it with marketing as a second major. Number two, we also started giving options to students to have a comprehensive and a specialized degree. And that was coupled with combined bachelor's and master's. So another example in that space is we never had a Bachelor of Economics earlier. We used to offer Bachelor of Commerce with a major in economics. But we started now offering a Bachelor of Economics and a Master of Economics, which a student can finish in 4 years instead of a 3-year Bachelor of Economics. They also have a choice to exit after 3 years and get an honors, because relatively the entry requirements for this combined bachelor and master's, as we call it, is higher than getting into a comprehensive Bachelor of Commerce degree. Accreditations play an important role in students selecting a university or a study destination. A couple of examples here is our Bachelor of Science with a data science as a major is accredited with Australian Computer Society, and students are very selective and choosy in knowing what accreditations are on offer for programs such as a Bachelor of Psychology that we have, and whether it's an accredited and gives them that industry recognition after they finish. Because at the end of the day, the Indian students are very keen to know what happens after your bachelor's degree. Where do we end up in employment, and those are the areas that we are focusing more on. Here are a broad range of examples that I've just highlighted. I'm not going to go in detail, but another couple of examples that I would like to highlight is now introduction of new majors, such as under a Bachelor of Engineering, we have automation and robotics, which earlier we never had on our offer. Then we also started introducing artificial intelligence as one of the specializations under a Bachelor of Advanced Computer Science with an honors degree. We never had a Bachelor of Mathematics, but now, which was under Bachelor of Science with a major in Maths and Stats, but now we've come up with a dedicated degree of Bachelor of Mathematics. Similarly, we never had a Bachelor of Marine Science. We had a Bachelor of Science with a major in Marine Science or Conservation Biology, and so on. So all these programs we've kind of renamed to, which is appealing to the Indian market, and students are very specific. They want to go and study a Bachelor of Astronomy and Astrophysics instead of a Bachelor of Science with a physics as a major. So these are some of the examples that we've made changes in our course offerings in the last couple of years. Now, another important draw card is scholarships. As we know, we all operate in this very highly price-sensitive market. Merit and sports-based scholarships are the two different areas that we came in the early 2021. Now, GES is how we call it, which is Global Excellence Scholarships, which are purely merit-based, and another category is the sports scholarships. Now, both these scholarships are ranging from 10%, go all the way up to 30%. At the University of Western Australia, we do not have any 50 or 100% scholarships for undergraduate courses for international students. Now, these scholarships were rolled in 2021. And as you all know, even affordability is not a big barrier for Indian students, but having a scholarship offer letter makes a big impact on the communities that they operate in within the social network space that they're based in. So hence, it is very important to have a kind of a fee reduction, as you may call it, for making this market more attractive to university. We also went ahead and started embedding scholarships in the offer letter. To an extent, we are now going ahead to consider whether we can do that even for predicted grades that are offered by IB or A levels as well, to keep students interested in the university. Conditional acceptance of offer on predicted grades. So as you know, in Australia, we have two standard intakes, February and July. A lot of students from IB or A level get their results in the first week of July or sometimes in August for A levels, and hence they are unable to get into July intake, and they'll create a gap of another one semester until they come back in the following year. Now we are allowing students to accept the offer on conditional or predicted grades, leading them to apply for visa, get the visa, come on campus even before their IB or A level results are released. So this conditional acceptance has really worked well in this market, and it's getting more and more popular. Let me give you an example of some analysis we've done for 2 years. So over 4 intakes, you will see S1 meaning February intake of 2022, S2 is July intake, and again, S1 2023 is the February of this year and July of this year. Now, the blue bar charts that you see here are students who have accepted offers with the Global Excellence scholarships, and the orange bar that you see on and off have students who enroll into UWA without any scholarship, so they're full fee paying students. Now, I'll go on to the line chart a bit later, but let me give you some example here. So what has happened in February 2022 is Australia opened borders in the early last year, and there were a lot of backlog that had created. As a result, most of the students who started coming in for the first 2 intakes of last year were a bit of a they like first S122 we received students for undergraduate were all with scholarships. All right, but from the next intake, which is July, there was an even split of scholarship between students who received and students who did not. And moving on further to S1 2023, as the scholarship started spreading into the market, there was more popularity, and majority of the students we got at UWA were with scholarships, and we did not have any students without who were full fee paying. And the reason for that is a lot of other Australian universities became very competitive in the market, so students had more options to choose offers with scholarships, and hence we saw a big dip in full fee paying students in the February of this intake. Now, on this, the black bar line chart that you see here is an award. So what we realized that in order to attract students who have not received any scholarship, but still encouraging them to come to UWA, let's consider giving an International Student Award. Now, International Students Award, we are offering only to a select few emerging countries in the world. And this award is given to those offer holders who do not meet our entry requirements for the Global Excellence scholarships. So they get a $5,000 per year off the tuition fee for the duration of the course. So if it's a 4-year master's bachelor's degree, they get a $20,000 of total scholarship. I won't say scholarship, International Student Award, that they would not receive otherwise because they couldn't meet our entry requirements for getting into a Global Excellence scholarship. So there are now 2 categories. One is students who meet our entry requirements, come on a merit basis and get Global Excellence scholarships. The students who do not meet our entry requirements for the Global Excellence scholarship, we are giving away International Student Award. Okay. And that has really helped because, as you can see, for the last 4 intakes, the International Student Award acceptance has gone from near 0 to 22%. And then even though the students without the GES, our ratio is really low, but the International Student Award has really becoming a very popular take for this price sensitive market. So we're offering it in Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India, and the Maldives. Just moving on to the next one, 71% of our UG enrollments came from tier 3 cities. An interesting stats here. So tier 1 city, let me describe you, such as Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad as an example. Tier 2 city, I would call them such as Pune, Nagpur, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, and so on. And we have close to about 213 tier 3 cities in our database that we've identified for students who came in the recent intake of July. Now, at the bottom, we have conversion rate that we are offering. We've analyzed to these students. So those who received an offer and those who enrolled. So that's the conversion rate. Interestingly, the tier 3 city has the highest conversion rate compared to tier 1 and tier 2 cities. What that tells us the story is the acceptance rates for students from tier 3 cities is much, much higher than tier 1, tier 2 cities. And there are two reasons that we believe is the case. One is obviously tier 1 city students are more informed and they have much wider course options they're looking for, and also many study destinations that they would like to explore before they narrow it down to a university and a country. And so is the case with tier 2. But tier 3 city students who typically apply through our channel partners coming to tier 1 or tier 2 cities, but still they're not really looking for too many options to apply, and they are very focused and targeted. So that's the analysis we've done here. And as you can see, the number of applications in tier 3 cities are also very high compared to tier 1, tier 2 cities. So for example, in Mumbai, we would see students preferring countries such as the US and the UK, not as much as Australia or New Zealand as an example. So relatively, we have a very high growth potential in tier 2 and tier 2 cities, whereas on tier 3 city, we have very high conversion rate potential. So that's the balance that we'll have to make when we are planning our marketing plans down the track. A few drivers I would like to quickly brush through before I hand over to my co-presenter. We are offering application fee waivers to priority schools for faster turnaround time is very important when you are churning out an application to offer and connecting with the students. We have dedicated resources who are based in India, talking to applicants and offer holders on a regular basis, helping them to make an informed decision. And also the internship and graduate outcomes, if you can embed in your marketing plans and promote it heavily, that would really help us in growing the employment. Moving on to the next one. These are some of the tier 2 and tier 3 cities that we have received students from India. And a few I would like to call out here. Certainly Lucknow is becoming a really popular one. Then up north, obviously Mohali, Chandigarh continues to grow recruitment. Jaipur and Udaipur in Rajasthan, we've seen really heavy growth in undergraduate recruitment. So as the case with cities such as Vashi, Thane in Maharashtra. And on the right-hand side, Coimbatore, Trichy, Mysore, Mangalore, they all are big growth markets for the University of Western Australia. Right, with that, I would like to hand over to my co-presenter, Gurpreet. Over to you.
Many thanks for that, Rupert. So for me, what I sort of wanted to sort of talk about was the university's approach, in particular how we as a university were a late entrant to the Indian market. And so, and as Rupert has been saying and has just said, is that as the Indian market is very much cluttered and very, very competitive as well. So the question for us was, how do we create our profile in this market space as well? So one of the things that we really wanted to do was to actually look at, first of all, really understanding our value proposition that we had. Ruth, do we have the slides on the screen?
No, we don't have the slides on the screen. Can we get some PowerPoint? Yeah, that's better. Yeah, now we have.
Perfect. Thank you. So next slide, please.
Yep.
Okay. So for us, as I was mentioning, is that it's the University of Newcastle. was a late entrant, and it traditionally had a very ad hoc approach to engaging in India as well. So one of the things that we want to do was to, okay, let's, rather than going in and making that same mistake again, we want to obviously work a bit smarter and not harder this time. And so what we really wanted to do was, we did a lot of introspecting, and we said, well, okay, let's identify our value proposition as a university, and then also identify the target segment we want to target. Now, a lot of people do make the mistake, in India, that, okay, it's got 1.4 billion people, therefore they must all be our consumers. That's probably not the right premise to be looking at. I think within that, there's a very small subset that will actually be that will be your target market, your target segment as well. So one of the things that we want to do was, first of all, again, identify a value proposition, and then clearly identify which segment that we as a university could actually build our brand and actually develop that strong affinity to as well. So based on that, working on the identification of value proposition target segment, we naturally because Newcastle is the second largest city in the state of New South Wales. So we then knew that we would not be able to compete or gain that traction or have that strong value proposition in tier 1 cities, as Ruthvik was saying, where you've got mega cities where populations of more than 10 million people. Newcastle only has a population of 500,000 people, so it was going to be a significant mismatch as well. So for us, it was more about, okay, let's identify tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because they were probably going to relate better to how the university was going to pitch itself. But more importantly, they will also probably understand what it's like living and studying in a smaller town or a smaller city compared to one of the big tier 1 cities as well. And so that's what we sort of, at the outset, we said we're going to be targeting those cities. So for us, what we've sort of seen is, with that in place, we obviously target very much very much the same cities that UWA and Ruthvik has been talking about. And so what we've really seen is, we've seen a significant shift in terms of how our enrollment ratio has gone since 2019, since we implemented this. And I've only put 2019, 2022, and 2023 because obviously I'm not really going to talk about. The borders were closed during COVID period, so there's not really point in talking about the enrollments during that period. But what we sort of saw, as you can see, is in 2019, 77% of our enrollments actually were postgraduates, but only 23% were undergraduate. And I think we've done a significant push in being able to, in those tier 2 and tier 3 markets, especially the undergrad market. As you can see, the ratio of postgraduate and undergraduate enrollment has been evening up to a point where this year it's almost 50%. And I think that's, and for a university as well, and I think that's actually a very good thing as well from an economic perspective, as well as we have students at the undergrad level who are going to be staying at the university for 3 to 4 years, compared to a postgraduate student who's going to be enrolling at the university for 1 to 2 years. So for us, it was a very strategic move in terms of also being able to increase our ROI on our activities, but also ROI on each student we actually acquire and enroll at the university as well. Next slide, please, Ruthvik. So similar to what Ruthvik put up, this was really interesting. I just want to show some of the results in terms of how we've actually our undergraduate enrollment have sort of been have developed in terms of tiers as well. So as you can see, in tier 1, so we obviously, similar to Ruthvik, we have actually seen a significant spike in tier 3 cities. But what we've also seen is we've actually, between 2022 and 2023, we've actually seen the proportion of tier 3 cities actually enrollments increased for us as well. And I think, and that's also deliberate effort, but also that talks about the demand that's actually in these tier 3 cities. A lot of universities do overlook these smaller cities, but inherently there is significant demand, pent-up demand as well. And students are there, as what we're saying is, has said, is that because there's a limited choices available as well. So universities do, find a higher conversion rate, like what we've sort of seen as well. We've seen a significant conversion improvement as well. So in terms of, one of the things that I really want to also talk about was looking at the evidence-based approach as well. So in terms of how we're also continuing to refine our strategy in terms of being able to ensure that we optimize our return on investment at all times as well. So one of the things and I'm a very strong believer in evidence-based decision making, and it's something that I've asked my team to look at wherever they are. Whenever we're looking at data, whenever we're looking at making strategies or planning, it's all about, let's look at the data, and that will help us guide us. So one of the things that we've been doing to actually further refine how we're going to be going is analyzing web traffic by city as well. So one of the things that we've actually been working very closely with our university marketing and communications team is to gather monthly reports on exactly where the traffic is coming from, in terms of which city in India as well. And that's allowing us to sort of monitor as close to real time, in terms of, one, any marketing activity we've done in terms of the response, but also, are there new pockets of demand that we're sort of seeing that we're not aware of as well. So, and then that's allowed us to be able to bring that down also to the study level, but also at the program level as well. So we're able to now start to use that data and feed that data and analyze that data to further our strategy as well. The other aspect, of course, is looking at is analysis of inquiries as well. So looking at, my team does a lot of lead generation activities through the various channels, like, for example, schools, or be it through partnerships, or through the agent channel as well. So we analyze all those inquiries that come through. We also get to students who sort of inquire directly to the university as well. So we then also analyze that data as well to obviously look at how we're going to formulate strategies as well. The other aspect as well is around agents, and I think, even though agents sometimes do have a bit of a negative perception in market, but if managed properly, they can be a significant resource for you in terms of being able to gather market intelligence at that ground level as well. They are also one of those channel partners that can actually extend your brand reach at the same time, and so through them, we're able to also pick up a lot of information that's happening in the markets, but also go into potentially go into some markets that we potentially university may not be comfortable, but they will do that on our behalf as well. So we've sort of worked very closely with them as well. And then, of course, social media campaigns is, so we obviously one of the things that we've done significantly during this time is taken a lot of time to understand the messaging, what I call the messaging matrix, and ensuring we only message what the Indian consumers are looking for in that regards. And then looking at, okay, so for example, we message on a very simple what I call a 3-pillar strategy. It's all our messaging is around high quality, affordability, and high ROI. It's a very simple formula. And if you notice that the University of Newcastle, all of its messaging matrix, be it through print, online, or social media, aligns very strongly with just those 3 core points, and with proof points as well. And these are fundamentally the decision drivers and the determinants that Indian students are looking for as well. So we've been able to then make sure we've really kept it simple in that regard. And of course, what all this is allowing us to do is drive further in terms of doing geo-targeting as well. So that's allowed us to further refine the way that we target, and the way that we approach, and the way that we actually then now start to engage with consumers and with prospective students in our target cities as well. So as Ruth had mentioned, so our key cities, as I said, very similar. So we've got Jaipur, Chandigarh, Amritsar, Coimbatore, Kochi, Ludhiana, and so on there as well. So they're very similar, but you can see there's a pattern emerging here. In terms of where universities, and there is significant demand for international education as well. Next slide, please, Ruth. So some of the key takeaways that we would like to sort of talk about is obviously is all of us are under pressure, at the universities level in terms of optimizing the resources and activities as well. So obviously post-COVID, we've all seen an increased competition, not just amongst ourselves in our respective countries, but also from other countries, so from non-traditional source countries as well. So that's obviously, so that means students have got more choices to now be able to make as well. And that's obviously going to make it harder for us as institutions to be able to make sure that we actually do secure their enrollment as well. But at the same time, during COVID as well, we've also seen that there's actually what we call resource scarcity as well. So we've all had cutbacks in terms of the way that we're in terms of marketing budgets, in terms of recruitment budgets, and in terms of travel budgets as well. So obviously ensuring that if we're able to have an evidence-based decision approach, or if we're able to use evidence to guide our strategy, it's going to help us to be able to optimize the results and we get better mileage from what we're doing in terms of our in terms of any activity that we're all looking at as well. But also from a sustainability perspective as well, is being strategic and using evidence-based decision making will allow you to actually be able to make a stronger long-term impact in the market rather than short-term impact as well. So for us, one of the things that I had told our senior management was that if we are to be able to re-engage in South Asia, it has to be you have to give at least 2 to 3 years for the strategy to be implemented fully, for you to start reaping those results. And that's what we're starting to see. So we started in 2019. We continued that through. We did a lot of work through COVID, but we're starting to see the fruits of those efforts in 2022, but definitely 2023, where we've had the highest number of Indian students in the history of Newcastle ever as well. And to a point where we've actually overtaken the Chinese market, and India has become the #1 source market for the University of Newcastle as well. So it's a long-term, we're looking at long-term rather than short-term. But also at the same time, we're all talking about sustainability as well in terms of our footprint as well. So, and I think that's something sometimes people don't talk about. If we're able to strategically plan and identify the markets we want to go into and how we want to do it, it also allows us to actually reduce our environmental impact as well. So, and universities, as you know, are now very much looking at wanting to sort of, look at reducing their carbon footprint, not just obviously on campus in terms of being able to make sure that we turn our lights off when the lecture hall's not being used or the office is not being used, but more importantly also as well as we're getting on planes. We're meeting students, so that's obviously impacting in terms of our carbon emissions as well. So if we're this way, we're also assisting the university to be able to optimize and also reduce our carbon footprint. And obviously, and there are rankings out there now which are really talking about our carbon in terms of obviously our environmental impact as well. And this is another way for universities to be able to show and demonstrate their sustainability statements as well. Next slide, please. So optimizing the strategy. So obviously, evidence-based approach is now a necessity rather than a nice to have. So as I mentioned, increased competition. My recommendation to you, is looking at as I mentioned, is with the increased competition, understand your value proposition and the segment you want to target, because that will help you drive better results at the end of the day. Triangulate, always triangulate, and analyze the leads, and that will obviously help you in terms of developing and having a very successful implementation as well. But I think the one thing that we shouldn't forget is continuous refinement and be ready to adapt quickly as well. And I think that's the key takeaway that I would love to give you guys is that continuous refinement. Even though that you may be seeing success, someone will replicate it. Markets shift very, very quickly. New trends come in, and you've got to be. And university is not always known to be very nimble when it comes to being able to adapt. But I think we now in this era post-COVID, we have to be very quick, and we have to continuously refine and be ready to adapt in order to be able to meet the challenges that we're all facing collectively in terms of recruiting, securing students from into our respective institutions. I think that's it. I think I'll over to you, Rupert.
Thanks, thanks, Gurpreet. I would like to open the session for Q&A if you have any questions. We also have some online audience. If they have any questions, I would encourage them. I would call out and encourage them to unmute themselves and ask questions. So anyone has any question from the audience here? Yep.
Hi there. Thank you for the presentation. It was very insightful. I'm in Memorial University of Newfoundland from Canada. I'm interested to see I know you mentioned earlier about the Bachelor of Commerce you offer, and then you've changing the name to more the Bachelor of Business. What did you see any of the, the result of the outcome of that and the interest when it comes to the enrollment specifically from the market here in South Asia?
Yep. Thanks for the question. So what's happened now these days is particularly the employment market in Australia is tending towards hiring graduates who are more of generalists rather than specialists. And the graduate outcomes we've noticed in those markets are highly preferred, where students are coming from more broader skill set than a narrow skill set. And when we're talking about a Bachelor of Business and the majors that are offered underneath, we'll encourage students not to just become an accountant or an investment banker, but they are aspiring for careers to become an entrepreneur or a digital marketer, where the skills are very transdisciplinary. And in terms of the results of these new programs, yes, we've already seen interest in programs of business, where it says business. We also have a Master of Commerce, but we are trying to convince our business school, can we now look into programs such as Master of Business or a Master of Management, which a few of our competitors in the group of 8 space are already offering in their brochures or course books. So that's where we are heading towards, and we're very optimistic from these markets that this will help us to grow in that specific area as well. Thanks. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything you would like to add, Gurpreet?
No, I think you're absolutely right. So I think what we're sort of seeing is exactly that employers are looking for cross-disciplinary, and that's what we're starting to see as well. Is that we're starting to see a lot more students now going into and picking careers in entrepreneurship and digital marketing as well. Even something like I'll give you an example. Even though this is not really this falls more about undergraduate, but we've seen an interesting uptake in students combining MBA with applied finance, for the Master of Applied Finance. That's something that's very interesting, and that's something that's just a recent trend where we're starting to see as well.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Keele University in the UK. My question's around actually, and it's maybe more difficult to answer because I don't know how you've gone about it, but one of the things and the problems that we have in the UK is around justification for scholarships, because the way that our system works is that we don't really have them, or to the same extent as other countries do, but also at the moment, given inflation and the fact that I'm sure a lot of universities relate to this, we have a capped home tuition fee, which we've had for a very long time. And so there's a lot of push for us to get more income from international students. So I'd be really interested to hear how and we know that scholarships are really important, but it's really hard for us to get that justification higher up to get those scholarships. So I'd be really interested to hear how you're able to, or what you're doing to get those, or speaking to upper management, what you're saying to get that kind of input from them, because we're trying to operate globally, and so it's hard to justify that for specific regions, things like that.
Great. Gurpreet, do you want to take first? I have my own set of
Yeah,
insights as well.
yeah, absolutely. No, that's a very, very topical question. I think we've obviously had to go through since 2019 as well. So since 2019 was the first time we actually started introducing scholarships as well. And again, our CFO was very, very opposed to the idea of giving scholarships as well. So, but the way that we were able to do, so one was obviously around benchmarking, but I think one of the things that we tried to actually, and we convinced them around that is at the end of the day is think about the lost revenue that you have anyway. So even if you do give a small proportion of your revenue, as a scholarship, you're potentially going to gain a lot more in terms of more students in class as well. So you're actually now getting revenue that you would never got anyway if you had not offered a scholarship. So yeah, so that was an interesting way that we pitched it to our senior executives, and that obviously helped us to be able to sort of get them thinking and experiment and pilot to a point where now we do have a very strong scholarship program as well.
Yep, thanks, Gurpreet. Just a couple of things that happened over COVID is all of a sudden China being our biggest source market for international students went down completely. So universities started losing a big chunk of revenues. And the next big market they obviously saw was India. And we know India is anyway a price sensitive market. And with the University of Western Australia relatively less popular in this market compared to the East Coast universities, if you talk about University of Melbourne or University of Sydney as an example, we had to put some carrot on the table in order to start gaining the momentum that we had lost during the COVID. It's not just offering the scholarships that we convinced the management on, but also tailoring down the entry requirements. So, in Australian higher education system, we have NUSA section guides where we categorize a University of Mumbai as section 1 and University of X as section 2 and University of Y section 3. So for a section 1 university, we have a requirement of 60% because it's relatively highly reputed. Section 2, we have 65% to get into the same program. And section 3, we have 70% requirement to get into the same program. But what we've done is we consolidated all the sections into one. So whether the student is coming from section 1, 2, or 3, our entry requirement is same, which is 60%. And what that helped us is becoming our scholarships more accessible to Indian students. And in any way, we are not compromising on quality of our recruitment from this region. Okay, so that was our primary driver to go ahead with this strategy. And we have implemented this for the last 2 years, and we are monitoring the performance of those students on campus, and we haven't seen any red flags so far. So I think in the scholarships, we have 3 tiers. One is $6,000, $10,000, and $12,000. $6,000 and $10,000 are very easy to claim for, but the $12,000 scholarships is someone we really don't get much traction. So we don't want to really give away scholarships that easily, and the scholarships amount we are talking about are not big. It's about up to 20 to 25%, and not many students achieve that top tier target of 25%. Majority are sitting in 10 to 15%. So that's how we are. I think one of the incentives of introducing scholarships to increase the pipeline of applicants, and the conversion is over to the staff who helps in converting those students. So that's where we are coming from in convincing the management. Yep, Mike.
Good morning. My name is Ankit. I represent Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. Firstly, thank you for the insightful presentation. I just have a very quick question. One of the slides mentioned about the key cities, and there were few cities from up north. Lately, there have been talks around, the concerns which are, which were identified. But still they remain as the key cities for the universities. So I wanted to understand if there's anything that the universities did to mitigate that risk and still be able to recruit from those markets. Thank you.
Gurpreet, would you like to start first?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that's a very good question, and obviously a lot of universities in Australia, and I'm sure other parts of the world, have actually faced similar issues, especially with some of the localized issues that have happened up north as well. One of the things that we as a university have done is whereas other universities in Australia did say we're not going to recruit from those regions, which I think is obviously it's their decision, but I fundamentally don't agree with that decision, because at the end of the day, it actually disadvantaged genuine students who are actually in that market as well. And look, and there are genuine students that are in those cities. So it's more about then working, as I said, it's more about identifying your target segment and being able to then ensuring that you stick to that target segment as well. So, and that's something that the University of Newcastle did, is that we continue to be able to work very, very closely with our channel partners to ensure them that, okay, this is the segment we're looking for. And so they were then able to then be our filterization point and be able to then triage, as I would say, anyone that sort of came into their offices, and so students who did meet the university's requirement and were genuine and were bona fide students, that they were then able to then progress that application to the university. So that's how we've been doing it in terms of So it's just more about sticking with your segmentation, but also that active communication and that two-way dialogue with your channel partners, because I think that's very, very key. And it goes back to the notion of that's how you're going to be able to actually then get that market intelligence to drive, the risk mitigation strategies in those markets as well.
Yep, thanks, Gurpreet. I think with the University of Western Australia, when you look at these high-risk markets, we have a term which is genuine temporary entrant, GTE as we call it. And typically, we've identified in these up north states which are high risk are mostly in the postgraduate space. In the undergraduate space, we have had limited incidences where we thought a student was non-genuine but still came to study at UWA. So we have a dedicated team who looks after the GTE, and we also get the students to go through a virtual interview, validation of academic and financial documents before the student is allowed to pay the first deposit and accept it at the university. So we have stringent processes in place, as Gurpreet highlighted, and I'm sure majority of the Australian universities are getting very active in this space here. Thank you. I think we don't have any questions anymore from the audience. So we, on closing remarks, Gurpreet, anything you'd like to add before we wrap up the session today?
Look, no, thank you so much for taking the time to attend the session. I think Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, as you can see from both of our presentations, offer significant opportunities for institutions that tend to obviously shy away from those cities, purely be it because they believe that there's no market, or it might be high risk. But if done properly, if targeted properly, if developing an evidence-based approach, you've seen two successful examples today of how universities have been able to recruit successfully from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities and grow their businesses as well.
Thank you, Gurpreet, and thank you everyone for your time this morning. Feel free to provide any feedback if you have, and we look forward to interacting during the day again. Thank you.